The silence was the loudest noise in the house. It was a dense, suffocating silence, thicker than the oppressive summer heat baking the suburban street outside. This was not the calm of peace. It was the calm of a pressure cooker. On the faded floral sofa, a young woman named Clara sat, a statue of simmering fury. At 20, she felt all the frustrations of the world pressing down on her. And the current battle, the one she was fighting without speaking, was with the one person she couldn't outrun, her mother. Clara's pastel pink t-shirt was wrinkled from her tightly folded arms, a defiant shield across her chest. Her blue jeans felt heavy, confining. The sunlight pouring through the window should have been cheerful, but it only seemed to illuminate the dusty tension in the air. She had hurled words earlier, sharp, jagged sentences fueled by frustration and the desperate need to be heard. Now, those words were spent, and all that remained was a burning, childish need for retaliation. From the kitchen came the gentle, rhythmic sound of her mother placing clean dishes into the cupboard. Click, clack, thud. Each sound was a methodical beat, a reminder of her mother's unshakable control. It was this control, this constant, infuriating calm, that Clara needed to shatter. Her mother, Sarah, never shouted. She never raised her voice. She simply stood there, eyes firm, posture straight, a wall of cool reason against Clara's fire. And that, more than any argument, felt like the ultimate insult. That calm felt like a dismissal. Clara's gaze locked onto the stack of plates on the kitchen counter, gleaming white under the electric light. A destructive, reckless thought sparked in her mind, hot and fast. If her words couldn't break the calm, maybe a sound could. Maybe an act. Maybe she could finally force her mother to lose control, to finally fight back. This thought was intoxicating, a dangerous solution to the unbearable silence. Asterisk, the air conditioner was struggling. The humidity was a physical weight pressing against Clara's skin. Every breath felt shallow. She had been sitting for 2 hours, watching the dust motes dance in the heavy shafts of sunlight. 2 hours of silent rebellion. Her mind was a chaotic storm. Why can't she just admit she's wrong? Why is she always the one who is so perfectly put together? She replayed the argument in her head for the 100th time. It had been about her college major, about her future, about the suffocating pressure of expectations. Clara felt like an exhibit under glass, constantly judged, constantly found wanting. Sarah, her mother, was organizing the kitchen. She wore a simple blue t-shirt and dark blue jeans, her dark hair neatly secured in a functional clip. Her movements were precise, economical. She was putting away the remnants of the day, restoring order to the house while Clara intentionally incubated chaos on the sofa. Clara heard the shink of glasses being placed on a shelf. She pushed herself up from the sofa, the worn fabric of her pastel pink t-shirt pulled taut across her shoulders. Her blue jeans squeaked slightly against the leather. She walked to the archway of the living room, pausing for a moment, her breath held tight. Sarah was just reaching for the tall stack of dinner plates. They were heavy, white, everyday porcelain. The stack stood like a little white tower on the counter beside the sink. Clara didn't think. Thinking was for cowards. She simply acted. With a sharp, sudden motion, she drove her sneakers across the tile floor. Squeak, squeak. The sound was jarring. She moved with a burst of adolescent adrenaline, a desperate need to create a moment of irreversible disaster. She lunged past the threshold. Sarah turned, but she was too late. Clara reached for the stack. Her intention was clear: to knock it over, to cause a mess, to finally make her mother gasp, to make her eyes flash with genuine, uncontrolled rage. Her fingers brushed the top plate. For a split second, she registered the smooth, cool ceramic beneath her touch. Then the whole tower tilted. It was heavier than she expected. The plate slipped, a sliding, terrifying cascade. Smash. The sound was thunderous. It wasn't just a simple break, it was an explosion. Porcelain shattered into hundreds of pieces, scattering across the kitchen tiles like shrapnel. The jagged white shards flew, some skittering under the fridge, others hitting the base of the counter with a lesser clink. The sharp, sudden sound echoed, a sonic boom that swallowed the silence whole. Clara stood rigid, her breath knocked out of her. Her chest was heaving under the pastel pink t-shirt. She looked down at the mess, her act of defiance complete. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. Sarah had turned fully now. The blue t-shirt stretched slightly across her chest as she crossed her arms. Her expression was not one of panic or fury. It was firmness. Her eyes were fixed on Clara, unwavering. "I've had enough," Clara snapped, her voice trembling not with anger anymore, but with the sudden, sharp reality of her action. It was a horrible sound, a sound of destruction. The silence that followed felt like the deep vacuum of space. Sarah's response was slow, deliberate. Her blue jeans shifted softly as she walked. 1 step, 2 steps. She stopped a breath away from Clara, standing between her and the debris. "Breaking things won't solve what's inside you." "Clara," Sarah said, her voice surprisingly soft, yet weighted with profound authority. "Maybe you'll finally take me seriously," Clara retorted, her chin lifting higher in a final, futile gesture of defiance. Her voice cracked slightly, betraying the fear she desperately tried to mask. The mother stood there, a presence of absolute, unyielding calm. The kind of calm that made Clara's anger feel shallow and powerless. Then the firmness turned into action. With the swiftness of a seasoned cat, Sarah caught Clara's left wrist. Clara gasped, ready to pull away, ready to struggle. But Sarah's other hand slipped into the space beneath Clara's raised arm. It moved with relentless, precise intent, finding the most sensitive area of the underarm. Clara's breath seized in her throat. Before she could process the sudden, intimate contact, fingers began to wriggle, light and persistent across her underarm skin. A high-pitched shriek tore from Clara's throat. It was not a sound of pain, but a sound of pure, helpless surprise, followed instantly by uncontrollable, explosive laughter. "Stop, please," she cried, doubling over. Her pastel pink t-shirt tugged against her body. Her entire torso contorted as she tried to pull away, but Sarah's grip on her wrist was firm, steady. The tickling fingers danced in her underarm, mercilessly exploiting the most vulnerable spot. Clara twisted and struggled, her blue jeans scuffing against the kitchen tiles. Peals of wild, helpless laughter filled the kitchen, the most absurd contrast to the shattered porcelain on the floor. Her cheeks turned crimson. Tears of laughter streamed from her eyes. Sarah's calm expression never broke, never faltered. This was discipline delivered not through anger or pain, but through control. Through an unforgettable, absurd physical lesson that bypassed all words. Clara's body finally crumpled against the counter, her laughter echoing like panicked, wild music. She gasped between laughs, the words broken and desperate. "Okay. I'll stop. I promise. Just ha ha ha, please." The moment the surrender was absolute, Sarah released her. She stepped back with the same measured calm that defined her. Clara slid to the floor, her body spent, still giggling breathlessly. Her pastel pink t-shirt was now damp with sweat, clinging to her skin. Her hair was a mess, plastered to her flushed face. For a long, ragged moment, the only sound was her desperate, gasping breaths. The woman in the blue t-shirt stood tall, her arms folded loosely now, watching her daughter. Her expression was a complex mixture of sternness and quiet care. "Discipline doesn't always hurt, Clara," she said, her tone soft but iron firm. "Sometimes it just reminds you that actions have consequences." Clara wiped her eyes, slowly catching her breath. Her hot, defiant anger had completely evaporated, replaced by a strange mix of residual hilarity and profound guilt. She looked at the scattered porcelain shards, the damage she had inflicted. Without a word, she pushed herself up onto her knees, her blue jeans pressed against the cool, rough tiles. She started gathering the pieces, carefully, cautiously. Each shard felt like a little weight of shame in her hands. Sarah did not move to help. She simply pulled out a wooden chair, sat down, and folded her hands in her lap. Her blue t-shirt stretched slightly. She watched her daughter work, patient but utterly resolute. Clara worked slowly, the sting of guilt now sharper than the edges of the porcelain she handled. The memory of the laughter, the absurd punishment, lingered in her chest. A bizarre reminder of the lesson. When the floor was finally cleared, she stood up, brushing dust and tiny specks of shattered porcelain from her jeans. Her eyes avoided her mother's. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The word felt small but genuine. Sarah leaned forward, reaching out to gently touch her daughter's cheek. Her palm was warm, steady. "Good, that's what I wanted to hear." For the first time that day, the tension broke. Clara leaned slightly into her mother's hand. The kitchen was suddenly silent again, but this time it was the quiet of understanding, not anger. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting the room in a forgiving golden glow. The shards were gone, but the lesson, the memory of that helpless laughter, would remain. The golden glow outside deepened into a fiery orange, then a soft twilight blue. Clara continued to stand near the counter, leaning into the cool, smooth surface. The apology had been the hardest thing, yet the most releasing. The weight she had carried all afternoon, the suffocating cloak of anger and misunderstanding, had finally been lifted by a single, absurd moment of ticklish surrender. Sarah withdrew her hand gently, standing up. She moved to the stove, the blue t-shirt a calming contrast to the lingering tension in the air. The smell of dinner, a rich, savory soup, began to waft from the simmering pot. It was a mundane, comforting aroma that signaled the return to normalcy. The sealing of the wound. Clara watched her mother's composed movements. She never got angry. That was the key. She never gave Clara the satisfaction of a full, shouted confrontation. She short-circuited the anger. She had taken all of Clara's fiery rage and met it with an unassailable calm. Finding the one physical reaction that could not coexist with anger, helpless, breathless laughter. Clara thought about the underarm. The intense vulnerability. It wasn't a painful punishment, but it was profoundly humiliating in a way a harsh word could never be. It stripped her of her defiance, her adult poise, and reduced her to a writhing, giggling child, dependent on her mother's mercy. It was an ingenious form of discipline, a physical reminder that her mother still possessed a deep, intimate knowledge of her knowledge that could be used for correction. She moved away from the counter, walking slowly to the small dining table. She sat down, her blue jeans feeling less heavy now. Her arms, which had been crossed so tightly for hours, now rested calmly on the tabletop. The silence was comfortable. Shared. Sarah placed 2 steaming bowls of soup onto the table. Her movement was steady, composed. There was no need for discussion. The action of cleaning the mess, the submission through laughter, the whispered apology, it was all the conversation they needed. Clara looked up, a small, hesitant smile touching her lips. It was the first honest smile she had worn all day. Sarah returned it faintly, her eyes carrying a powerful mix of strength, knowing, and tenderness. They began to eat. The warm light above the table glowed softly, isolating their small, quiet world from the evening outside. The earlier storm felt like a memory already fading, a dramatic, temporary flash of heat in the long summer day. Clara finally leaned back in her chair, feeling a deep, profound sense of relaxation. The balance had been restored. The lesson had been taught. She realized that she hadn't just been disciplined. She had been seen and understood. Sarah knew her daughter's fire could not be extinguished with matching fire. It had to be diffused with the one element that could break through her: stubbornness, absurdity, and physical release. The soup was delicious, grounding. It settled the nerves. Clara felt a deeper respect for her mother now, not just for her composure, but for her creativity. She had been defeated, but not damaged. She had been humbled, but not crushed. She finished her soup, picking up the bowl and walking to the sink. This time, her movement was cautious, respectful. She rinsed the bowl, placing it carefully in the dishwasher. She paused, looking at the empty space on the counter where the stack of plates had been. The counter gleamed, clean and orderly. The memory of the laughter and the lesson would remain. She returned to the table, her mother still seated, observing her. Clara felt the need to speak, not to argue, but to acknowledge. "Mom," she said quietly. It was effective. Sarah's smile grew a little stronger. "I know you, Clara. I know what you need. You needed to stop fighting me and start feeling the weight of the consequence." Laughter is a powerful conductor of truth. Clara nodded, absorbing the wisdom. She stood there, bathed in the soft, warm light, finally ready to let go of the anger and simply be. The evening was sealed with a quiet but powerful sense of peace, a peace earned not through surrender, but through a deeply unconventional form of mutual understanding. This story is over, but the conversation is just beginning. We all have different memories of discipline and consequence. We want to hear from you. What is the most unusual or unexpected form of discipline you ever received? And what lesson did it teach you that you still carry today? Do you think unconventional discipline, like using humor or tickling, can be more effective than shouting or anger? Why or why not? If you were the mother in this situation, how would you have reacted to the dishes being intentionally broken? Let us know in the comments below.